Hey everybody, welcome back to week 2 of Deep Sea December. Right up front, I want to let you know that I've gotten sick over the last couple days, and exhaustion has kept me from scripting this video. I still want to get it out, so we're going to wing it just a little bit. Before that though, we have 2 pretty significant announcements. The first is our Discord is live. If you want a place to interact with me or our community more directly, click the link in the description and join today. The second announcement is that I think we should do something special for the final week of Deep Sea December. I want you to submit either in the Discord or in the comments your ideas for deep sea Pokemon that you want to see in the Wentano region. I don't know how many I'll get to make, but you have until December 21st of this year to submit your ideas. Those ideas will be transformed into Pokemon and will be probably the final video of the year, so look forward to that. Now that we're through all of that, let's dive deep into the oceans of Wentano and talk anglerfish and rockfish. Anglerfish are, I feel like they're pretty well known, especially with movies like Finding Nemo or even existing Pokemon like Lantern. Everyone tends to know what an anglerfish is. And we make a lot of assumptions about the glowy thingy that they dangle in front of their mouth, assuming that it's some kind of lure to get smaller prey fish in to a location where they can be easily eaten by the anglerfish. You'll notice from an anglerfish's shape, they aren't very fast. In fact, they kind of are just big blobs, which means that that's a probably fairly successful hunting strategy for them. In looking at this Pokemon, you're probably just gonna see a small anglerfish, with one notable exception. The little dangly thing, it's not there, right? Well, there's a couple reasons for that. The first is that I kind of gave the angler lure shape to Tangoliath. It felt fitting, and I liked it, and I don't want to duplicate that shape within my own Pokemon. The second is that Lantern already has that as well. So, in an attempt to be original, I decided to go with something a little more different. This Pokemon's typing, I'm just going to let you know up front, is going to be Rock Electric. I want this Pokemon to have electrolyzed crystals, kind of like you have in the Unova region on your way to fight the rock-type gym leader. These crystals emit light and can even shock the surrounding areas in order to stun prey fish that then this Pokemon can feed off of. I want to make sure that this Pokemon has enough weapons to protect itself. It's actually surprisingly small. I think that it would be just big enough that you could technically hold it with one hand and be okay, but it's not very large, if that makes sense at all. Another important note is that the way that electricity works in water is probably pretty surprising. We know that water is a very conductive material in society, and so we're cautious of that. But if you're just in the water in general, electricity disperses not that far because there's a lot more water to go around. So this Pokemon uses the lights of its lures to get Pokemon in close so then it can emit those electric shocks and protect itself. Now, this may surprise you. I've immediately switched to drawing another Pokemon. At least that's what it looks like. It's actually not another Pokemon. Surprise! This is a female version of the same Pokemon. I really wish that in the world of Pokemon we had more drastic differences between genders, that male and female Pokemon could have more than square-shaped tails and heart-shaped tails. That's cool, and I think commonly in the animal kingdom we have those smaller changes, but I do want to see more dramatic ones. That's why this Pokemon has a dramatic size change and some coloration changes as well. But it's also based in anglerfish physiology. Now, I don't want to get into this discussion too much, but the way that anglerfish reproduce is pretty gross. Male anglerfish are technically parasites. Here's what happens. They will find a female anglerfish. They will bite onto them, connecting their bodies through that bite. Then their blood flow connects, like their blood vessels will connect to the females, and they literally become one with the body. Through that little fish, big fish connection, they are able to reproduce. They exchange gametes, all of that good stuff, and lay a clutch of eggs. It's horrifying. The scariest part of all of that is that the male anglerfish never lets go. Once that entire process is done, it just gets absorbed into the body of the female anglerfish. Again, very body horror, very gross. I wanted to incorporate that into this Pokemon. So you see a lot more of those crystal spikes on the female version of this Pokemon. That's because those were once its mates. Again, kind of a gross concept, but very cool because it allows this Pokemon to have a lot more of these crystals and a lot stronger electric power to match its larger size. Another thing you'll notice is that in coloring this Pokemon, I dulled its eyes out a little bit. A lot of fish specifically, but really any animal that lives near the bottom of the ocean, they're blind. That's pretty common. And so in my mind, the male anglerfish can see because they need to be able to get to the female anglerfish. But the females are blind because they're not worried about that. And instead, they use their overwhelming electric abilities in order to sense organisms nearby. Meet Anglure, the fusion Pokemon. Anglure have dramatic differences in size between male and female Pokemon. Males are much smaller and use their eyesight to locate females in the depths of the ocean, where they attach to them. Once attached, these Pokemon undergo a symbiosis, becoming one and producing a clutch of eggs. Once this process has been completed, the male remains a part of the female's body, unable to detach as they are now one. Let's get to our next Pokemon. I decided to take inspiration from a completely untapped source within our world's oceans for this Pokemon, and that is Plankton. Now, other than a very popular SpongeBob character, I don't think most people know what plankton are or even look like. So what are they? Well, it's kind of just a broad term that we've given to microorganisms that live in our oceans, freshwater, really any water. Anything that is a microorganism, lives in water, is a plankton. Because of this, you get dramatic changes in body plan across plankton. They're not really related to each other. Again, it's kind of just a size thing. So, what is this Pokemon? Well, it's a plankton. I'm intentionally being vague with that because I want to be able to draw on a couple different body plans to produce something more original. I don't just want to redraw a plankton as a Pokemon. Specifically, these are kind of a drably colored plankton, and I did that on purpose. Light levels at the bottom of the ocean are notably basically non-existent. That being said, almost no real animals or organisms are black. You would think the bottom of the ocean, it's dark, it's black. The animals that live there would be black in order to camouflage themselves. That's not true. The reason for that is because light levels aren't zero. They're very, very low, but they aren't technically all the way black. And so if you were to be black, you'll actually stand out against that background. At least that's what scientists have theorized. So this Pokemon is intentionally a darker drab color to try and fit in with that dark water kind of vibe that's not all the way black. On top of that, they do have a defense mechanism. Bioluminosity, or the ability for a living organism to create light within its own body, is something that this Pokemon has access to. And this is common of many plankton, actually, and many other organisms that live within these depths. They light up in various ways to do various things. Sometimes it's to communicate, sometimes it's as a warning signal, and that's the case for this Pokemon. Should it be found by a potential predator, it'll immediately begin to strobe the lights on its belly, its arms, the one on its head, whatever it's got to do to try and make itself seem bigger and more intimidating. It's essentially a bluff, a warning signal with nothing to back it up. But will it work? Sometimes, and that's true in real life too. The other thing I want to point out is this Pokemon is not a microorganism. In my mind, if it's going to be a Pokemon, it's got to be big enough to catch and train. So I think of it as like a Z-cell size. That's the smallest version of a Zygarde, where it definitely fits right within the palm of your hand. Anyways, meet Planktot, the plankton Pokemon. Planktot are some of the smallest Pokemon that researchers have found in all of Wintano, but also worldwide. This size makes them vulnerable to many predators, but they can strobe lights from inside parts of their bodies to scare and deter those that would eat them. They can also hide themselves quite well when their lights are extinguished, as their drab color scheme makes them nearly invisible within the dark waters. And today we're going to evolve Planktot. No more weird boy-girl Pokemon differences, at least not in this video. Instead, we're just going to do standard evolution. Here's the thing about Plankton, though. We have the broad term, like we already talked about, and then there's a bunch of classes for more size variations within plankton. Things like phytoplankton, zooplankton, and the largest of all, megaplankton. Now, I want this Pokemon to be a megaplankton in comparison to Planktot. But that being said, megaplankton doesn't turn into a great name, so don't expect the final name to reflect that. But the goal here is to create a hodgepodge of different body plans from different plankton to create something spectacular, something out of this world. The reason for that is this is a Pokemon, but it's also an eat or be eaten ocean. Lots of plankton eat other plankton. That's the food chain there. And so I've taken some of the more predatorial body parts to build something that is a capable hunter. In fact, we're also going to incorporate more lights. We've talked about with Anglure that it uses lights to draw things in close. Well, our new Pokemon here, this larger plankton Pokemon, it doesn't necessarily want you close. In fact, it doesn't even want you to know it's there until it's too late, because it's using its lights for an entirely different purpose. When I think of mesmerizing lights, I think of things like fireworks, where you just can't help but look at them. They're beautiful, they're intriguing, they draw you in closer. You just want to know more about them. This Pokemon uses different parts of its body to emit different colored lights in different patterns to essentially hypnotize larger Pokemon that would hunt it. In fact, these Pokemon work in schools to create amazing underwater light shows that mesmerize and captivate the other Pokemon of the deep oceans. Why do they do this? Well, they're kind of parasitic. Like I said, it's an eat or be eaten ocean. If you're paying attention to the lights, you're not paying attention to the other half of the swarm that's attached themselves to your body and is feeding on you. Kind of gross, kind of scary, but that's how this Pokemon gets around. That's how it survives. In fact, researchers that have gone to the depths and seen this Pokemon at the bottom of the ocean are confident that these hypnotic light shows may even feed on the minds of the Pokemon that witness them, essentially turning them into husks, complete shells of their former selves, and those shells are then devoured by the swarm. These Pokemon are larger than a Planktot. They're still not big, but they do pose a real threat despite that, which I think is pretty cool. Meet Pulseton, the pulsating light Pokemon. Pulseton are considerably smaller than almost any Pokemon within its own ecosystem, with the exception of Planktot. Researchers have seen swarms of Pulseton work in unison to hypnotize and feed off of would-be predators, completely turning the tables on them. They seem to feed off both mind and body of their victims, as those who do survive the feeding process are left in a deep, unbreakable trance. So, what do you guys think? Did I make Plankton cool? What about anglerfish? And would these Pokemon end up on your team? Let me know what you thought in the comments, and don't forget to join our Discord and submit your Deep Sea December ideas. I would love to have some Wentanomon that originated from community contributions. Until next time, I hope you like what I've made, and I can't wait to see you create something of your own.